All right, so we are still in the section on on witnessing, and this is not proselytizing. This is this is witnessing your own mind, witnessing your inner world, which is a really, really, really important thing to do. It's funny because when we first start trying to go in there, we're not sure there's a whole lot in there. You really can't find a place to actually be absorbed or to watch. But over time, as the mind quiets down, you find that you can sink in there, and there's a lot of things going on in the mind, and those things are responsible for a lot of the stuff that we struggle with in life. And because we're not watching the inside, they creep up on us. These little mind patterns creep up on us unawares, and we're always getting entangled in them because we don't catch them soon enough. We only catch them after they've brought up a few of their friends and have become a tour de force in ourselves. And so this is one of the importances of watching our inner world. And also because we become aware of the very slight hooks that keep pulling us out of our center. Those little things in our thinking that are constantly making us forget. Um, which is I went through a period in San Francisco where I would find that I'd be sitting in the shrine doing practice, and I would suddenly just realize that my mind was like, planning the next grocery run. Just it had completely left the idea of God, completely just gone off, and I didn't catch it for quite some time. And so I started trying to become aware of that moment when the mind switches, when the mind goes away from God. And I haven't done it. I haven't really done that recently. Well, it doesn't happen quite as much now, but the fun of it was that I could never do it. I know Prabhupada and I used to have this running joke going on because he and I were going in for quite a few surgeries back in the early 2000s. Me with like my broken leg and then different hernia surgeries and such, nothing serious. And he was going in for his. And so we would always have these very interesting conversations around anesthesia as we sat at the lunch table, because it was such a fascinating thing from an interior world perspective to not have control. And Swami and he would always talk about his attempts, and we would laugh, and I would talk about my attempts to stay conscious. To when they inject that anesthesia and they start counting backwards, and just with all of our might, even Swami Prabhupada, a master meditator, and we would just always end up laughing because he's like, there's just no knowing. He says, Maya slips in immediately and you're gone. You don't even realize she has come and taken you. You're just out all of a sudden. And so this is how that happens, and it's how it seems that it happens in our mind when we're in meditation, because we haven't become sensitive to the subtle yet. We haven't gone below the gross thinking. We haven't come down into that level where the thoughts arise, and that takes some time of just quieting the mind. There's not really a specific thing you have to do. It's just stop doing everything else. Of course, that's the whole secret, isn't it? And you become more aware of the processes in there, and you start to see their signs, and you can react to them much earlier with much more effect because they haven't brought all their friends yet, all of the related thoughts and patterns and memories of whatever it is you're struggling with. So he's been talking about these things. And last week he was talking about his desires were legitimate desires. I'm not sure what his criteria is for a legitimate desire. Uh, Certainly all desires from some perspective are legitimate, but and we have to work through them. And Mother's quite kind about that. She wants you to work through your desires so that you can discern them and see their effect and then move beyond them in a healthy way. So it's not so much that desires aren't legitimate, it's just that what is causing them is not necessarily sound. It's legitimate, but not necessarily sound. because they come from an imagined need, an imagined sense of lack, because we've identified with the small part of ourselves, the manifested part, rather than that eternal part inside. So he wants to know, how to attain our desires. And so last week, just to begin a question early, he says, yet often ordinary persons do attain what they desire. And Maharaj says, after desiring it very much and for a long time, even then their achievements are limited. All achievements are limited, because how much can we do? And what does the inspiration come from? If it's just a desire, that's not quite enough usually. And the achievement is only going to be temporary, no matter what, no matter how great it is, it's still going to fall into the past. And what about unselfish desires, is his question for this week's start. Maharaj, when you desire the common good, we looked at this, I think. When you desire the common good, the whole world desires with you. You know what? I was a page early. That's why we've been there. So let me just finish that, just because it's a good thought. When you desire the common good, the whole world desires with you. Make humanity's desire your own and work for it. There you cannot fail. All right. So we talked about that last week, about expanding your sense of self. That's really what we're trying to do. All spiritual practice is about that. Expanding our sense of self, really by diminishing ego. Ego is the boundary. Ego is the limiting factor on our nature. It's the limiting factor. It's what keeps you from being infinite. It's what keeps you from being general, and insists on particularity constantly, because it lives in the relative. And so for the mind to operate and to have a concept of self, which is what your ego is, then it has to be limited. It has to be well defined. And that's where we get stuck in our personalities and our patterns. So now the questioner is saying, he asked earlier, what does it do to know ourselves? And he says, what does it mean to know myself? By knowing myself, what exactly do I come to know? And Maharaj says, all that you are not. Well, why would he answer that question like that? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Why would he say, all that you are not? What does it mean to know yourself? By knowing myself, what exactly do I come to know? All that you are not. Anyone have a good answer?
Yes, because what you think. Yeah?
Go ahead, Eva.
Yes, because what you think you are, it's just imagination. That's not true. So if you have everything what you think you are, I understand. That's not you really, because it is not deep enough. It is not the real you.
Exactly. Exactly. If you come up with any particular, if you grab an adjective to describe yourself, you've limited yourself.
Exactly.
Right. And we, in our true nature, are ever free, ever pure, immortal. It's like there is no attribute that we do not have, and we are not limited to any single attribute. And so when we go looking for the self, we don't go looking for attributes of what we are. You see, that's where our delusion comes from, because the mind gives us lists of attributes about ourselves. You're this and you're that, and you like this and you don't like that, and you want this and you don't want that, and you work at this and you are better than that, and you're not as good as that. That's how the ego forms, just picking particulars out of our thinking to ascribe to ourselves. Those are our attachments. Those are the things we grab onto and say, this is what we are. And when we go through the process of knowing the true self, the mind is going to try and just keep continually line up adjectives. It'll constantly tell you what you are, and that's why we have to disidentify with it. That's why we have to understand that the mind is not us. And in that understanding, then we begin to understand the mind doesn't know who we are. And even if it knew who we were, the mind cannot tell you who you are because it doesn't fit in there. And so this is what we come to know. We come to know all that we are not. We come to know all of the bondages are not our definition. Swami Vivekananda says that our personalities that we love so much is just a bundle of limitations and restrictions. That's all it is. Your whole sweet personality, that wonderful, delightful, witty person you are, is just a list of restrictions and boundaries on yourself. So we're going in search of the infinite, and we're going in search for that which is searching. So it's a very complex situation that we're in. And not what I am, what you are, you already are. By knowing what you are not, you are free of it and remain in your own natural state. It all happens quite spontaneously and effortlessly. You see, just by being in the presence is one. And two, it's because it's what you really are. And so the process of undoing is not a strenuous process. It's only when we view it as doing that it becomes strenuous. And that little switch is when the ego kicks in. When the ego kicks in, it's not surrender. You know, when the ego is shut up, then it's surrender. Surrender is shutting down the ego. Doing it yourself is pumping the ego up. And so we're just discovering what we already are. We've talked about that a couple of times this week, but it's a wonderful thing to remember that realized self that you hope to become at some point in the future already exists completely mature and ready within you right now. You just have to move out of mind. You have to move your identity out of the changing. And that's what practice is doing. That's what attention is doing. That's what discernment is doing. That's what the mantra is doing, to move us out of mind, you know, so that we slip in almost like a snapping into our real nature. We just come to at some day, at some point. You know, we've sat in the presence long enough, the mind's quieted enough that all the tension is now relaxing, and boom, our identity snaps back into its right place. And that's why he would say it happens quite spontaneously and effortlessly. It's like the perfect student in the Vedanta Sara, is that it, I think, where he describes the perfect student. And I remember telling Swami, God, I don't even qualify to be a student by that list. I said, how can that be the requirements for a perfect student? And Swami says, well, see, a perfect student means all that's necessary is for the teacher to lean over your shoulder and whisper in your ear, thou art that. And boom, you go into samadhi. And so if you're the perfect student, that's all that's necessary from your guru. The rest of us, we're down here struggling just to be good students and just really leaning heavy on the grace of our divine. So yeah, so it's by knowing what you are not, you are free of it. And then you remain in your own natural state. By negating all of these things, what you're left with is what you are. And that is infinite and undefinable. And what do I discover? Maharaj, you discover that there's nothing to discover. You are what you are, and that is all. You know. Now, it could mean two things there, because and that is all could mean like you're not going to discover anything beyond what you are, or you could remember that you could be saying that what you discover is that you are all, that you are everything. The reason there's nothing more to discover is not because you're at the end, but because you're at the center of the infinite. You discover that there's nothing to discover. You are what you are, and that is all. I don't understand, Maharaj. It is your fixed idea that you must be something or other that blinds you, right? That constant idea that something has to be done, something must be accomplished. And that's the part that we just have to get over. It's a letting go, but we can't even imagine. How is it possible? This isn't my experience of myself, you know? And so this is because, again, we're living in that changing and looking for those experiences to define us. It is a fixed idea that you must be something or other that blinds you. It's just this idea you've got to do something, you've got to accomplish something, that you're in a time machine, that time has to pass, and at some certain point you'll meet an accomplishment. And so by negating all of that, we're free of that. Sit in your meditations. There's many ways to start it, but another way of the thousands we talk about is insisting on freedom, just to know that at this moment I'm absolutely free in every way, and to know that just means free of desire. And so with that freedom comes the growing contentment. With that freedom grows growing strength and just a wonderful unfolding. Because in true freedom, you live by inspiration and not by limitation. And to live in inspiration is beautiful. It gives us such a joy of life. It gives us so much energy to express, because we've got this wonderful ocean within us of a beauty that we can just give away for free, for no reason. It's like I like to watch that Ellen show back when she was giving money away, and she'd just have somebody go out on the street and just give a large amount of money to someone. And I always thought, wouldn't that be the greatest job in the world? Your job is to go give away somebody else's money. I thought, what a beautiful thing. And in fact, as you sit and think about it, that's our whole life. We are giving away divine love. We have an infinite amount of it, and we can give it sweetly all day long. It costs us absolutely nothing to be kind, to be generous, to be alert to suffering, and to be the person willing to get involved, be the person willing to help. So this fixed idea that we have of needing to become something or fix something or be better or be purer or be brighter or whatever it is, this is what blinds us. Questioner, well, how do I get rid of this idea? Maharaj, if you trust me, if you believe when I tell you that you are the pure awareness that illuminates consciousness and its infinite content, realize this and live accordingly. If you do not believe me, then go within, inquiring, what am I? Or focus your mind on I am, which is pure and simple being. So he gives three statements there. And it's interesting because in one point, the questioner asks, Maharaj, you're sitting there enlightened and I'm sitting here in confusion. What is the difference between us? And Maharaj made another one of those infuriating statements, sort of like this one, where he tells the guy, well, the difference is when my teacher told me that I am that, I believed him. You've come up with dozens of reasons of why you're not. And so that's why he starts this one here. If you trust me, if you can hear me, believe when I tell you that you are the pure awareness that illuminates consciousness and its infinite content, right? You are that pure awareness. That's your nature, pure awareness, no particular, not toward anything, but open, a giant listener, observer that illuminates consciousness and its infinite content. So just believe that. Just repeat that to yourself and assume its truth, and just keep going deeper in that assumption. Realize this. That's what that means. To keep assuming it until you see the truth of it, until you experience the truth of it, until it becomes real for you. And you realize that your previous assumptions, which is all you have about yourself, that your previous assumptions were incorrect. And so you're exchanging a pair of assumptions. Wrong assumptions for a right assumption, and then ultimately that's the second thorn that you throw away after realization. So realize this and live accordingly. Now, this living accordingly means you have to in your assumption of this, experience it and open it and let it get down into all of the other thoughts that come out of your mind. This is how we live accordingly, is we start letting these ideas of the knowledge of ourself start infecting the way that we view the world and the way that we view ourselves and the way that we act in the world. If you do not believe me, then go within, inquiring, what am I? What does it mean to be a human being? What am I when nothing is telling me what I am? And that's one of the big tricks to answering that question is we quite often go into our mind for the answer. We start thinking about it. What am I? I'm a human being. What does that mean? Oh, I've got legs and arms and all of this. So we go in and we try and define it that way. But what we're doing here is going in and inquiring, what am I? In the sense of not being told, but observing the inner self, not the mind, not the contents of the mind, not the thoughts of the mind. It's when everything is quiet, when everything is still, when nothing is telling me anything, when my senses stop telling me, when my mind stops coming up with stories, in that silence, in that absolute 0 point, what am I? And the only way to know is to go there and manifest it. Be. Just be. Don't be anything, just be. So if you sit there, go in and inquire, what am I? Or focus your mind on the I am. Turn your whole attention inward to your existence. Contemplate the existence. What is it to exist? What is in here? Am I in the body? And you can do fun little goofy things. Like one thing that I did, well, some of my silly experiments is like I put my hand here on my head and I closed my eyes and I paid attention to that. And I thought, where am I in relation to my hand? It's not relation to my body. It's over my ear, but to relationship to the me inside. And it's a very, very, very interesting exploration to help you identify and realize that you're not body, because you'll realize that you don't really have a location, that you're not really even in the body. You can't even determine that you're in the body. There's nothing to tell you where you are. And hence the sages betray that truth, that we are everywhere. And so it's by doing little things like that, starting to pay attention to small little details. One time that I learned something very interesting it led to the idea that everything is just thought. Because I was laying in bed one day trying to fall asleep and just wandering mind, thinking about odd things. And I felt the sheets on the top of my toe. And I closed my eyes and I thought, what do I know? What information is being transferred to me from my toe that tells me where it is? And I realized the feeling of the sheet on my toe did not at all tell me where it was. I had to take in other senses and kind of do an interpolation. Oh, I've seen my toe. My toe is down there, and it's my toe that's feeling. So visually I have location, but with just the feeling, I didn't have a location. I didn't know where my toe was. There was no way to know. And so it's interesting to see how you assume things based on information that you're getting or not getting, whether it's interpolated information or whether it's actual information. And so all of these little games that you can do, I'm probably confusing the tar out of some folks. I'm sorry about that. But these little games that you can do just to see how narrow our thinking is, how limited we are in our thinking, and how many assumptions that we make in a day about what defines us. So it's becoming aware and catching the mind, setting the locks like that. It's those things. That's why we do that neti. I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that. And to really go one by one and really eliminate the thought of what that is. You can do that at any time. I did it bathing one day, showering. As I washed a part of the body, I was like, that's not me. And I really sat there and tried to eliminate a thought about that hand and then my arm, and going through the whole body. And that's when you learn a lot of things about the interior world. You learn that as you eliminate the things that you've leaned on to identify yourself, that at the bottom is a great fear. a fear of an unknowing. And that fear is our sense of otherness from the whole. It's our,
Swami,
yes.
When my niece was born,
Uh-huh.
I found she had long hair lots of hair when she was born.
Oh,
And
interesting.
she would, her hair would come in contact with her hand would come in contact with her hair, and she would instinctively pull it because that's what they do.
Right.
And she would cry and not know how to release herself. And I realized that she doesn't know where her body begins and ends.
Yeah.
She no knowledge of the world at all. She's like, she needs to learn that. She was newborn. And so even today, I can't do it with myself, but I put myself in how I imagined her at the time.
Right.
And I realized that she has hearing and sensations, but she doesn't have a sense of her body. And so she is big. She's like in the all over the room, all over everything. And she needs to, she thinks she's everything, which is wrong, which is what I thought at that time. But she needs to learn to, discover her body and actually see that she's limited to that. So even today, I can go into that mood, and without the delusion in me at the time that she was wrong, and
Mm.
then try to imagine how she would imagine herself, like so big and so limitless, so vast, and she doesn't know where the pain is coming from. I don't know if I'm making any sense,
No, of
but
course.
it helped
Absolutely.
me. It still helps me, but I can't do it with myself.
Right.
I can imagine. I can imagine herself being that and being me too. Yeah.
Yes. No, that's a wonderful insight, and definitely it's true. They say that you don't know that your toes belong to you until you're about 7 months old,
Yeah.
and you have where the body is not us. We wouldn't have to learn those things if it was us.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's a vehicle, and when we're born into the world, we're in this car, we're in this vehicle, and we have to figure it out. We have to figure out, how do I move it? How do I roll over?
Yeah.
How do I stop pulling my own hair? you know? It's like, then the first thing we have to do is identify with it. You have to learn, those are my toes, these are my hands, these are my feet.
Yeah.
We have to own everything. So you see, the process of ignorance is learned.
Yes. And then
Ignorance.
when Swami A was teaching Viveka Chudamani, when I was new here, it clicked because that's the explanation. It's just that we identify ourselves with the body because that big sense of self, you limit it as we grow and understand, and because it's close to where I don't know how to explain it, but that helped me understand it.
Yes. No, that's excellent. This is how we learn to become aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
At first, to become aware, we have to become aware of the places that we're not aware, which means figure out your assumptions. What assumptions have you made, and why? You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maharaj, Swami
Yeah.
Vivekananda, when he was coming out of his samadhi, he couldn't find his arms and legs.
Yeah. That's a pretty funny problem, but yeah, it's absolutely right. He found his head, but he couldn't find his body. He was calling out for help. So, I guess these higher consciousness, I can't even imagine, because he also had to walk around Calcutta. He was banging his head on walls and on the fences to convince himself that they existed, that they were real. It's I don't know. It's fascinating when we start approaching this higher knowledge, that you begin to understand this life is unreal, that this world is a set of assumptions on our part, wrong assumptions, and that when those wrong assumptions are dropped, boom, it just goes.
So Maharaj, is there any part of the experience that is real then? I mean, I can understand the body, the mind, because when you go down, but yet when there is stillness, there is no sense. There's no sense, outward sense, right? So is the knowing of the experience real?
The knowing of the experience real? It depends on, yes. It's an excellent question. I'm not sure how to answer it, because the experiencer is real, right? But without the experience, there's no experiencer. And so even
both the experience and the experiences would be unreal in a way.
Yes, well, they're not unreal.
In a way.
They are a wrong way of interpreting the real. So we're taking that information in and coming up with the wrong answer.
Right. So in our mind, the way we look at it from the relative point of view, the experience and the experiencer, the object and the subject are both unreal in the relative, the way we view it in the relative way. But the knowing of the experience,
the knower experience, not the verb, but the knower. The
right,
eternal,
right. The verb, right.
Yeah.
That's the real, I would say.
Yeah, the knower, the one knowing, the one experiencing is the real. The experience is, this is a very, very, very deep question, actually. And it goes kind of above my head in a way, in the sense that it's the question of Shiva and Shakti. It's the question of God and his power. It's the word was with God and the word was God. It's that paradox, so we've got the subject object. We say the experiencer, the witness is real. And yet Thakur says we are experiencing something. So there is a reality to experiencing, but it's not what we think it is. It's not what we assume it to be. So yes, we have to go through a period where they're both real before the singularity, before the one without a second. There is God and God's power, and that's what makes the world seem dual. We've got the unchanging within, but we're witnessing a seeming constant flow of change. So yeah, that's what Thakur is saying. And I don't know how. I don't think there is an explanation. I don't think there is a good paragraph that could possibly be written that would explain that, because I think that's part of the mystery. Thakur says, you climb the stairs, and when you get to the roof, you realize the brick dust and the bricks in the stairs are the same as the ones in the roof, that there was no difference. And yet you climbed the stairs. You had to climb the stairs to know that. So there's something there. We are experiencing something, but what we're experiencing is not what we think, not how we're interpreting it.
Right.
We're experiencing a singularity, but we've broken it into 5 pieces coming in through the senses, and we've misidentified them as we stored them in the mind. We kept them separate and apart and just drew lines of relationship kind of thing. So in that sense, yeah. But he says, really, the way past it is, we don't have to know the philosophical aspects of this. He gives us three ways. One is to trust your guru when he says that you are this real. The second one is to ask, what am I? What is this that's asking? What is it to ask? What is, just start taking apart your experience of being. And then the third one is to turn inward and just focus on being, on the I am. Don't ask or pursue an identity. Just sit and be, and just open yourself up. No cognition in this focusing.
Right. That's where I started from. Right. That's what brought about the question in my mind, that in that being, there is still the experience of being, and maybe because because the mind is not grasping it. That even in the stillness, there's the experience of stillness.
Yes, initially, yes, for a while, and probably
while.
all the way to the end for us. Probably,
right.
It'll be grace that lifts that off for us. But yeah, that focus on is, and it's all inclusive, and it has no boundaries. You don't limit it to senses. You don't limit it to mind,
right.
And you don't pay any attention to any particular thing. You keep backing up. You keep backing up. Keep backing up. And, that's how we back into our identity, which is really a useless identity because it's an identity of everything. So nobody's going to be able to send you a letter as the infinite.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, just to clarify, because I'm slow. So basically,
you're so mean to yourself.
No, I'm just saying, like, you're like, wow. So basically what it is like, until you experience it, you have to know, like, the karma, everything is basically there until you experience it, because you're not going to know you're the knower. You're not going to know that you're Atman until then. So that's what the neti neti is. That's basically the stairs. You have to know until you reach it to say that you're it. That's why you're experiencing everything. You have to experience everything until you reach it. That's why there's still an experience. You're not going to know that you're not experiencing it and you're the Atman until you're actually there. And then you realize everything is unreal, basically, right?
Well, no.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, in a comforting way. Like, it's okay to arrange it that way, and you can still move in that. There's a couple of things in this, is that the struggle, as he's laying it out here, is not so much to know that you're the Atman, but to know that you're not everything else, right? Because it's not something, we're not going for a particular, and if we name the Atman at our level, it becomes an idea, it becomes a particular, it becomes a boundary definition. So we're not going toward being the Atman. We're removing our wrong thinking about not being the Atman. Right? So we're backing into it that way. And you already are that. The reason we're not experiencing it is because we don't act from that place. We don't live in that place. That place is silent. That place is beyond time and causation. That place doesn't have karma. Because that place is not mind. So we may not be able to know that we are Atman, but we can certainly do the work on we are not the mind, right? And so our practice is not so much to try and be the Atman, but to understand what we are. And we do that by breaking away from the things we've identified with, the wrong things we've identified with. I'm not this mind. This mind, the thoughts of this mind do not belong to me. They have nothing to do with me. They literally have nothing to do with you. It's only your attachment to this particular mind that's creating your experience of Priya. And that same self, which is attached to your mind and has become Priya, is the same self that is attached to my mind and become Swami C. And so these attachments is what have to be undone, because we already are what we are, and we're not going to add to that or take away from it. It really is just a matter of removing the wrong things that we've attached to. There's nothing to do that we have to become. There's only what we have to undo that we've thought we are. In those three ways: faith in your guru, asking, going inward and being like, what is this experience? What am I? What is going on here? Frankly, for me, that's my major interest in life. It's not really attaining anything. I just want to know, what in the world is this? What is going on with being alive? What does it mean to be whatever this is? And what am I? What is this experience about? And then the third one is going in and just opening to the experience, not trying to figure out anything, focusing on your isness, just being, removing all of the effect of the past. So sit there and say, you know, I'm not any of the things I thought I was, and none of those things that have happened are me, and none of them are present in this moment. I'm free from all of those things. And then as you get free from that, you realize that the necessity of future is also gone, because future is just going to be more of the experience of this now, right? And so you just kind of be here and let go, train yourself to see what doesn't belong to me, let go of that, and then allow what does belong to you to manifest. All right? Have I tied your
get all of
knots?
No, I do get all of that. I do.
Okay. Yeah. And now the practice is let it be true. You know, accept it. Don't argue against it or push against it, and don't let it slip out of your mind for a moment. Just be constantly aware of this truth. And don't think that you have to do anything. Just simply be where you are. And in that moment, all of the information necessary for you to navigate perfectly is spontaneously available to you. So you will do the dishes properly.
No, I know you still have the householder life, but I mean, while you're doing this experience, while you're doing that, you're still having a true experience, is what I'm saying.
Well, watch the experience. Try and determine what you mean by an experience, because you are observing something happening.
But as like what Bindu was saying, I'm saying that part's still real until you experience the fact that you've reached the end. I'm saying, I guess it's still real to you. It would still have to be real, is what I'm saying, right? Technically.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's confusing because we're still talking about as if you're going to become something that's different from what you are right now at some point in a future. That's not true, and that's not a way of getting there. The way of getting there is become fully aware of this moment, because you're already there. You already are what you are. You just have to figure out what mistakes have you made, what things are you holding on to define yourself that are arbitrary and unnecessary. So consider what you think you are, and then one by one go through them and reason and understand why you're not that. Like, you know, write down a list of what you are. Who is Priya? You know, first one, I'm 28. It's like, okay, well, we know that's not true. So let go of any idea of being 28. Look through your mind and sort out all the ways that being 28 has determined your behavior, you know. And then it's like your second assumption, I'm a woman. No, you're not. We know that not to be true. And so go through and look at the way assuming that you're a woman has colored your idea of yourself and affected the way that you act and affected the way that you think. You know, and then go through, I'm a nurse. Well, no, I'm not a nurse. And go through looking at the ways that assuming you were a nurse has changed the way you think about yourself and the way that you behave. You see, and just like this, by doing that, you undo these wrong notions, these definitions that have colored your experience of God to be the one that you have. But you are, though none of those things are true. So you're not actually any of them. You're something beyond that. But what that is will begin to manifest as you stop identifying with the curtains, you know, with the decorations. As soon as you stop identifying with them, what you are will begin to seep in. You know, you'll start having room in your attention to realize, wow, I'm something profoundly more than what I have assumed. And I have a power that's profoundly deeper than what I ever experienced as being available to me. And these things begin to creep up on you. and bliss is among them, and detachment increases. Your power of detachment to deep increases, and so it's a process of undoing. Don't imagine a destination. Your destination is now. Your destination is here. So arrive. That's all. It is a catch-22. That's why it will happen spontaneously and rather quickly. He says, at some point when the light goes on, the light goes on. We're just looking for the light switch at this point. We're not having to install it. Just as an idea. So he says, if you trust me, believe me when I tell you that you are the pure awareness that illumines consciousness and its infinite content. Realize this and live accordingly. If you do not believe me, then go within inquiring, what am I? Or focus your mind on I am, which is pure and simple being. So those are the three paths for Jnana Yoga there.
Those were all in Safeway.
What's that? What was that, Liz? Okay, must have been a pre-muting statement. So these are things. Now, focusing on the I am, that can be a bhakta's practice. The I am is your beloved. So focus on the presence, the all-encompassing presence of the I am, of the beloved. That's the practice of the presence of God right there. So that's a bhakti method, or can be a bhakti method, which is pure simple being. The questioner, on what my faith in you depends. So how do I have faith in you, Maharaj? On your insight into other people's hearts. If you cannot look into my heart, then look into your own. Questioner, I can do neither, Maharaj. Purify yourself by a well-ordered and useful life. Watch over your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. This will clear your vision. He's giving us a lot of very straightforward information here. These are very practical pointers, that we can look at. So we've got those three practices above. And if you're not quite getting it with those practices, if you're in this man's condition here, where you really can't see when you go inside, you really can't get the mind to slow down, you can't experience these truths inside. He says, then purify yourself. How? By a well-ordered life. That means a disciplined life, not a life based on doing what you feel like, but doing on what should be done. So you control the time you get up, you control the times you eat and what you eat. The things that need to be done, you do them now. You don't do them tomorrow. These forms of discipline that will put you in charge of the horses. That's what we're trying to do. A well-ordered life will put you in charge of the chariot and the horses, right? Your senses and mind. That's what we're talking about. So purify yourself by a well-ordered life and a useful life. So even if you have nothing to do, don't use that for idleness. If you have nothing to do, go be useful for someone else. Go look for other people to help. Go look for ways to encourage. Go look for ways to build up. Go look for ways to be a positive influence. So make your life a well-ordered and useful life. Watch over your thoughts. So you've got to have that interior watcher activated all the time. This is not something we do an hour or two a day. This is something we do all day long, regardless whether a householder or a monk. It does not inhibit your ability to do your duties just by being aware that you're doing your duties. That's what you need to do. You just need to be aware. Watch your mind as it does things. Watch your feelings. See how they're connected to thoughts. See how they creep in and color your experience of what someone else is doing or saying. And see how this has triggered patterns in your behaviors and your actions. Learn to see that you've become an automaton of assumptions that have battened you down and held you to the grindstone of your karma. But you can't let go of those things until you realize you're holding them. So this is what he's telling you. Watch your thoughts, watch your feelings, guard your words, watch your words before they come out of your mouth. Watch where they're coming from. See the mind patterns that have triggered your anger or have triggered your need to say something mean, or triggered your need to say something nice, flattering, It's like, become aware of what moves your internal world so that you can see that it's nothing. There's nothing in there that's real. It's just habit, patterns after patterns of habit, after years of wrong thinking. But we have to become aware of it. And so he says, watch over your thoughts, your feelings, your words, and finally, your actions. Your actions probably is where it starts, because the actions, that's where most of us are living, at the level of action, rather rajasic. And so we're living in our actions. But go and start asking, where is that action coming from? Why am I doing that? Where did the inspiration for this action come from? And become aware. And he says, through this awareness of a well-ordered life, useful living, and becoming aware of your internal world, it will clear your vision. It will remove your delusions. You'll start to see the automatic wrong cycles that you've been victimized by through ignorance, through unawareness, right? Ignorance, you're ignoring of them. You've just assumed them, you've stopped thinking about them, so you're ignoring them, letting them go on, and you suffer for them. We complain about it all the time. Oh, my mind is so noisy. Oh, I can't meditate. Oh, I don't feel any bliss. Oh, mother, I never feel the presence. Well, those are things that are not true, because you are bliss and mother is everywhere present. So reconsider your assumptions. Reconsider your conclusions. Mother is present. Why aren't you paying attention to her? Mother's in the room with you now. Why aren't you thinking of her? This is the way it goes. He says, must I not renounce everything first and live a homeless life? He's saying, so do I have to be a monk? Maharaj, very straightforward. You cannot renounce. You may leave your home and give trouble to your family, but attachments are in the mind and will not leave you until you know your mind in and out. First things first, know yourself. All else will come with it. Right? So it's not a doership. It's not a doership. Going and becoming something different than you are isn't the answer. Run out and become a monk. That will save me. I can tell you it doesn't. The work remains. It's just how you're going to fight the battle. What tools are you going to use to become aware? Because our whole trouble is in our mind alone. Our whole karma is in our mind alone. It's not an out there thing. Wherever you go, there you are. Go move into a monastery. You're still going to be you. Go put yourself on a planet on the other side of the galaxy. You're still going to be you. Wherever you are, there you are. And so your relationship is not with conditions and circumstances. That's the wrong thinking. We think that that's what it is. That's where we came up with the idea of vacations. But if you're depressed in the office and you go on vacation, you're going to be depressed on vacation. It's like, wherever you are, there you are. We're not dealing with conditions and circumstances. We're dealing with our relationship with the here and now, with the I am. And that is God. It's our relationship with God that we're sorting out in the way that we live. And to realize that everything we think and everything we say and everything we do is done in God, by God, through God. That's how we purify ourselves of ego. And that's how we remove the veil. Ego is the veil. This thought of you needing to accomplish something, you not being perfect, you having to fix something. All of those are ego-driven thoughts. The non-ego-driven thoughts is not me, but thou. It just doesn't matter whether I'm real or not. God is. And so our mind is on God. It doesn't matter whether I feel love right now or not. Love is the experience of the moment. Boom. Doesn't matter whether I feel like I should be lazy or not. Action is the call of the moment. It's just that removal of me and mine. That's how we purify. So you cannot renounce. You may leave your home and give your trouble to your family, but attachments are in the mind, and they will not leave you until you know your mind in and out. First things first. Know yourself. Everything else will come with it. Questioner: but you already told me that I'm the supreme reality. Is it not self-knowledge? Of course you are the supreme reality, Maharaj says. But what of it? Every grain of sand is God. To know it is important, but that is only the beginning. Well, you told me that I am the supreme reality. I believe you. What next is there for me to do? Maharaj: I told you already. Discover all that you are not. Body, feelings, thoughts, ideas, time, space, being and not being, this or that. Nothing concrete or abstract you can point out to is you. A mere verbal statement will not do. You may repeat a formula endlessly without any result whatsoever. You must watch yourself continuously, particularly your mind, moment by moment, missing nothing. This witnessing is essential for the separation of the self from the not self, right? So it's not that we have to separate ourselves from the not self. We're not doing the separating. We're doing the realizing. I'm not the mind. Never was the mind. So if I never was the mind, I don't have to separate myself from the mind. I just have to realize I'm not the mind. I'm not the body. Okay, I don't have to separate from it. I just have to know I'm not this body. And then you have to understand what that means. What does it mean if I'm not the mind? Well, it means that the mind isn't me. It doesn't have anything to do with that question. When I'm trying to find out what I am, I don't go to my mind for it. What does it mean? It means the mind and its moods don't have to affect me. I don't have to react to them. I don't have to be them. I'm free. The mind can be in whatever mood it wants to be in. I don't care. I'm here and now. And I'm in life. I'm seeing life and taking it in. The mind's coloring it this way. I don't care. I know that it's not that way or any way. So it's taking these observations in and then pointing them out to yourself and then living as let them have their effect of truth on you. Live as if they're true if you're not already. And little by little, that's how we get there. All right. So we're going to look at that paragraph again next week. So he's really told us today, quite a few things just to summarize there, that it's through faith in the Guru that we go. If not that, then it's by asking what I am. If not that, or in combination with those, we focus on the I am, on the presence, and we be here and we be here now. And in this now, we watch in the silence of now. We establish that for a second and then watch from that moment forward everything that the mind is up to. What's drawing your attention? Why did it draw my attention? What is my attention? Why is it limited to one thing? Let's open it to everything instead of any particular. And so to become aware of that inner world so that you can realize that it's not you. And then continue from there. And as you begin dropping all of this baggage little by little, this wonderful euphoria of freedom will begin to become apparent to you. And that when you find that faith in all being God and that all is well, the freedom increases, your awareness of freedom increases, and your bliss of being begins to manifest. And there we are.
Swamiji.